to switch the focus to Gaelic games now, because Dublin and Galway look set to meet in the Division 1 final of the Alliance Football League, and both winning at the weekend to make it 5 wins from 5. Oisin Langan was at Croke Park for Off the Ball yesterday, watching Dublin dismantle Kerry, beating them by 12 points. We're going to chat to Oisin about what we saw yesterday in a moment, but first let's get his thoughts. Speaking to Longford and Kilmacud Crokes footballer Brian Kavanagh after the game at Croke Park.
They just stepped it up another level. Their support runners were coming out from everywhere, and it was emphasised then when Kieran Kilkenny scored his goal in the 42nd minute with the overlaps that created the goal chance. So yeah, they just took it up a level or two that Kerry weren't able to live with their fitness wise. They seemed to be blowing a small bit in the second half. Maybe their running game mightn't suit their players as much as a kicking game would.
They were blowing hard. They were bullied by Dublin, maybe even. Is that a worry, even though they're quite young?
Yes, they never turned up in the second half, and they probably need a few of the older guys to come back in and steady ship, especially in Barry John Keane came on in the second half, and he didn't get a sniff of the ball at all, and they were just totally dominated in all aspects. In the first half they were in trouble with their kick out, but they were coping admirably well in all other areas of the game, but in the second half they were just outclassed in all facets.
Can they take any positives maybe from the display of David Clifford? Is that a positive that they can take?
David Clifford is a positive. Their first 25 minutes when they were going toe-to-toe with Dublin, that's a positive as well. But after that, it was when Dublin took control that they'd have to look at.
So that was Oisin chatting to Brian Kavanagh at Croke Park yesterday afternoon. Oisin joins us this morning. Thanks a million for getting up early and having a chat with us, Oisin. How are you?
I'm very good, Dave. How are you?
Good. You were there yesterday. In the Irish Independent today, Colm Keys has said, if Dublin are doing this to Kerry, where does it leave the rest of the country? And it does look ominous, doesn't it? A 12-point win. Just to go through the guys that Dublin didn't have yesterday: Mick Fitzsimon suspended, Conor Callaghan club commitments, James McCarthy rested, Diarmuid Connolly rested, but we'll get to that in a moment. That's an odd one. Kev McManaman, Paul Flynn, Owen O'Gara, Paul Mannion, McCaffrey and Brogan are a little more long-term in terms of their injury profile, but there are 5 current All-Stars in that list, and still Dublin are winning by double digits against supposedly one of their real challengers, potentially for an All-Ireland later in the year.
One of their real challengers, Dave, but not the way they were set up yesterday, or not, should I say, the way that they were staffed yesterday. Missing an awful lot of players, Kerry. Yes, they want to give the young guys a chance. Yes, they'll probably rely on these young guys come championship. But certainly that wasn't the Kerry team that will start in the championship. Now, I did see it pointed out that maybe numbers 1 to 8 wasn't far off Kerry in the championship. But up front, especially in the second half, especially in the first 20 minutes of the second half, they had absolutely no impact. I remember before when Kilkenny were at their pomp during the kind of 4-in-a-row era, someone saying it's always that first 20 minutes of the second half that a team like Kilkenny gets you. And it's the same with Dublin. They have kind of a similar level of dominance as that Kilkenny team. Their strength, their physicality, their ability to run out of defence and create overlaps. That was the real difference, especially in that second half. Now, Kerry were unfortunate in the fact that Paul Ganey had to go off and Sean O'Shea, who was actually playing quite well, had to go off as well. And the two of those had goal chances in the first half, and they will be kicking themselves for missing them, and rightfully so. Paul Ganey hit the butt of the post. Sean O'Shea flashed wide when he'd actually got around Cluxton. Johnny Cooper dropped back onto the line, but he just couldn't find the target. Stephen Cluxton was also forced to make a good save, I think, from Kevin McCarthy. So those were 3 chances in the first half that Kerry had. Had they got maybe 2 of those goals, who knows what way the game would have went. But Dublin were very impressive, and it's scary, the talent they have and the reserve of talent that they have. But it's kind of odd, no matter who plays for them. They're not kind of personnel dependent. They play the same way regardless who's out there.
Yeah, you mentioned the goal chances that Kerry created, and look, we know that if you're going to beat Dublin, you do need to score goals. And the injuries as well, half-time losing Ganey is big, although he's not actually in the best form at the moment. But that kind of thing is going to happen over the course of a championship, isn't it? And Kerry just didn't seem to be able to react to the loss of a couple of those key guys. And I would just wonder, if you get into the meat and drink of the championship, a side that completely loses their shape, doesn't score more than 3 points in the last 45 minutes of a game. It's only the league, which is what a lot of Kerry fans might say. This time last year they were bigging up the league because they'd managed to beat Dublin.
They were, and it's somewhere in between, I think. Now, you have to keep in mind with Kerry, they'll obviously have a relatively easy run to the Munster final, with the greatest respect to the other teams in Munster, and then they'll get into the Super 8. So they have time to build up, and because they have that kind of innate ability and they have that innate belief, which is even as important, I don't think they'll be too concerned about the trimming that they took yesterday. They will take the positives. Do they want to be hammered by Dublin and Croke Park? No. Do they want their guys to step up and show maybe that they can do something in headquarters against Dublin, regardless of circumstance or time of year? Of course they did, but they did get a bit of something out of yesterday. David Clifford looked to the manor board. I mean, he kicked 2 absolutely sweet points in the first half. had a few chances, kicked a few frees. There was one free which he moodily, or I should say oddly, kicked short. They tried to create a goal chance and it just didn't work out, so maybe that's a lesson learned for him. But Fitzmaurice quite clearly said to these lads, go man on man and have a go, and they would have picked up stuff from that. And Kerry have taken trimmings in the league from Dublin before, and they've bounced back and they've been competitive. So I appreciate what you're saying, and I'd apply this to Mayo as well. I never worry about Kerry and what they do in the league. I kind of look more at their individuals and things they're taking rather than their results. And I think Eamon Fitzmaurice, without thinking for him or speaking for him, might say the same. Now, he wouldn't have wanted that second half displayed, that's obvious, but I don't think it's as bad maybe as people think.
Okay, just before we leave Dublin, Diarmuid Connolly was asked, Jim Gavin was asked about him after the game, and he said he's being rested. This is a guy who's played 26 minutes of football for Dublin this year, has had no club commitments to speak of in comparison to previous seasons. What's going on here?
I'm not quite sure. It could be just a case that, if he's been training incredibly hard, then maybe he does need a rest. I'm
sure he's training as hard as the rest of the players who are playing every game.
He is, Jay, but Jim Gavin is a very smart manager, and he's not one of these guys who just trains the bejesus out of everyone. I think he looks at everyone as an individual and knows what they need, and that's the important thing about Jim Gavin. And yes, he has the comfort to do that because he's got so many options. Other managers just don't have those options, but Jim Gavin does. And I think if he's resting Diarmuid Connolly, he's doing it for a reason. It's a reason we may not find out until Connolly releases a book, and I really hope he does in the coming years. But I at the moment, I wouldn't be too suspect of it. I'm hoping maybe Connolly's trying to exit to the hurling panel, because I've always wanted to see Connolly play hurling for Dublin or at inter-county level.
And of course, Dublin booked their place in the hurling quarter-finals yesterday. Quick word on Galway, Oisin. They're 5 from 5 as well. I'm not sure we'll take an awful lot of learnings from the game in Salthill, but it's certainly going to be interesting to watch Galway with this blueprint that they've taken into the first few rounds of the league, take on the All-Ireland champions, and there'll be a massive crowd at that game. It's going to be a real occasion in comparison to other months of the year. So as regards March of this season, it's actually going to be something to look forward to.
Yeah, and it's a reward for the Galway fans who've had a tough couple of years, even though they've won a kind of title and they've got to the quarterfinals. But they're not where they want to be. They're Galway. They should be at the very least in the semi-finals each year. They certainly have the talent to do that. I've been lucky enough to see them in the flesh a couple of times this year. I saw their under-21s last year, and they've just got a nice little blend of youth and experience. Now, I do think they're going to have to evolve their game, Dave, if they're to have a chance of winning big games in the championship. I think it's just a bit too simplistic at the moment to just sit deep and break. They have an awful lot of talent. Granted, they're doing it with better players than maybe other teams try to do it. We'll say weaker teams when they come up against stronger teams, so it does give them a chance. But it'll be a good test of where Galway are at, I think. And it's a weird one as well, because they could well end up meeting Dublin in the league final in Croke Park, and that would be a big occasion as well. But I'm excited about Galway. They beat Monaghan yesterday. Monaghan lost a man early enough. It was a silly foul. They actually probably should have given away a couple of penalties. I think David Goff maybe let them off in the end. But certainly with Eamon Brannigan, Peter Cook, Shane Walsh, guys like that, I'm really excited by Galway. And they've got a few young lads as well who are incredibly decent, including Sean Andy O'Kella, who could be the answer to the fullback question. He just looks like a class player in that position, and it's a position that they've needed to solidify in the last couple of years, and they look like they're doing it.
Oisin, you're a gent. Thanks a million.
My pleasure.
And thanks to Oisin, who took the call from us a little bit at short notice this morning. Sam Gleeson's been in touch, wondering where the hell is Oisin, because the quality of that line was incredibly good for a man who was broadcasting from underneath the bridge somewhere. I don't know if he's in Dublin or whether he's elsewhere in the country, but thanks to Oisin Lagan, who was watching Dublin dismantle Kerry yesterday. He mentioned Galway 5 from 5. And barring a cataclysmic set of results, Galway and Dublin will meet twice in the space of 3 weeks, because they will be contesting the Division 1 League final at Croke Park. Dublin essentially have to lose to Galway and Monaghan at Croke Park in their final game. So almost certain that Dublin will be contesting what I think is the 6th league final in a row, and a chance to win a first national title since 2001 from Galway's point of view. So an awful lot of interesting developments still to come. Strong words from Jim Gavin as well after the game. He slammed the GAA, or specifically the Central Hearings Committee, after they had taken the decision last week to uphold the red card shown to Mick Fitzsimons for a late challenge in the game against Mayo, late challenge on Aidan O'Shea. He says maybe there's an objective to sanitise the game of Gaelic football. I look at the hurling fraternity and they've kept the physicality in their game, so we just need to be mindful of that. So when Jim Gavin speaks, most people listen, and he certainly had strong words for the CHC, and still talk that they're actually going to continue their quest to clear Fitzsimon's name for that incident, if that's the right terminology to use, because there's some talk that they will take it on to the CAC, despite the fact that he's already served his one-match suspension. Okay, the big story of the weekend was Limerick winning the hurling and Dublin beating Kerry